Hi, third graders. We're going to talk more today about the case of the gasping garbage. And I want you to be thinking about Nell and her mother, Professor Fossey. I want you to be thinking about how those two characters are alike. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to be thinking, like we always do, why these characters are motivated to do the things that they do. And we're going to take a look at something today called literal and non-literal language. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But let's dive in to chapter 6. Remember, it was simply stumped. And let's see if they can solve the problem. Mossy Lake University was not too far away. In fact, it was right next door. Nell left the scene and hurried on campus to her mother's laboratory. She often went there when she had a problem. And this was definitely a problem. Fortunately, her mother was in. Professor Ann Fossey was sitting at her desk grading papers when Nell walked in. "Mom? Goodness gracious sakes alive, if it isn't Naturalist Nell. How are you?" And Professor Fossey hugged Nell in a most unprofessional manner. But Nell didn't mind. Ever since her father and mother had divorced 2 years ago, Nell figured she needed more hugs than her normal quota. 12 per day, to be precise. That's very exact. "What brings you here?" asked Professor Fossey. "I have a problem, or rather, the town has a problem." "Really? Please explain." And so Nell did. She explained and explained, and when she was done, she said, "So that's it. We're stumped." Simply stumped. And now Detective Drake is going to try to raise a bridge with hot air balloons before Frisco saves the day. I just don't know. Something's not right. For a while, neither of them spoke. Nell knew her mother was thinking hard. Her mother was always quiet when she was thinking hard. And during all this hard thinking, a clock ticked, a snake slithered, and a gerbil fell asleep. Finally, Professor Fossey spoke. "I had a similar situation once." "What happened?" "I was deep in the Amazon, floating down the river. Suddenly, our canoe sprang a leak. Surrounded by crocodiles, we started sinking. It was desperate, simply desperate. It was sink or swim." "So what did you do?" asked Nell. "Our lead scientist suggested we quickly make friends with the monkeys. Then the monkeys would swoop down from the trees and grab us just in the nick of time. But then someone else suggested that instead we hypnotize the crocodiles using the latest techniques in animal magnetism." "And?" "Obviously," said Professor Fossey, "we were wasting precious time. So I simply plugged the hole with bubble gum." "Bubble gum?" asked Nell. "Not exactly cutting-edge science, but it worked." "Wow," whispered Nell. But then she frowned. She didn't see the connection. But what does this have to do with a truck stuck under a bridge? "Ah, like a true scientist, you've come to the heart of the matter. You see, Nell, sometimes the best answer is the simplest answer. Now, I want you to return to the truck and think simple thoughts. No balloons, no grease, no peering under the hood. Here's my cell phone. If you're still stumped, give me a call here at the lab and I'll talk you through it. I know you can do it, dear." And with that, she gave Nell a quick peck on the cheek and went back to grading papers. So her mom didn't give her the answer. She did tell her what to do. She gave her an example of something that she did, something that was simple that helped her in the past. Did you notice when she said, "You've come to the heart of the matter"? We know what a heart is. Wonder what heart of the matter is. All the way back to the bridge, Nell puzzled over what her mother had said. Sometimes the best answer is the simplest answer. Crossing under the yellow tape, she surveyed the scene once more. Nothing had changed. There were still firefighters, police officers, engineers, truckers, politicians, and reporters. They still measured and jotted and held quick conferences. Nell walked around the truck. She scratched her head. She got real quiet. She thought real hard. The simplest answer. And then she thought some more. It was beginning to hurt, all this thinking. She fingered the cell phone in her jacket pocket and wondered if she should call Professor Fossey. She knew her mom would give her the answer if she asked. But no, Nell wanted to solve it herself. The answer was simple. It was right in front of her face. All she had to do was think. Do you remember yesterday when I mentioned think about how Nell and Drake find the problem and how they solve it? Look at that. She doesn't want to give up. She doesn't want to go ask her mom. She's pretty determined, isn't she, to find the answer? And so she did. She thought simple thoughts. She thought and thought. The simplest answer. She stared at the truck. The truck is too tall. She stared at the tires. And then she knew. Wonder if you know. It was simple. So simple that she was amazed no one had thought of it yet. The answer was, of course, air pressure. The air pressure in the truck's tires supported the weight of the truck. Once that air pressure was gone, the tires would deflate and the truck would sink. Knowing this, Nell picked up a strong twig and calmly poked it into the valve of tire number 1. She'd seen this once on TV. Psst. And while no one paid her the slightest attention, she poked the twig into the valve of tire number 2. Psst. And tire number 3. Psst. By the time she had let the air out of all the tires, the entire town was watching. If they weren't there in person, they watched it on TV. Everyone gasped in amazement. It was quite impressive, really. Slowly, very slowly, the truck sank lower and lower until finally it was a few inches shorter than the bridge. "Gentlemen," said Nell to the trucker, "start your engine. The next time, read the height sign." It made for a long day. All the interviews, all the handshaking with the mayor, all the explaining about air pressure. By the time Nell returned home, her tadpoles had been waiting a very long time. They were glad to see her. The phone rang. "Doyle and Fossey," she said. "Drake here. Congratulations. It was awesome. Air pressure. How did you figure it out?" "Simple," said Nell with a satisfied sigh. It was simple. So here we see her on the TV, right? Letting the air out of the tires. Here's Drake at home with all of his stuff on the bottom here, right? He's got his charts and his lab notebook. Okay, still got all of his tools, and he's watching that pretty impressed. So her mom said it was simple, right? Just look in front of you. Don't overthink it. Now, did you notice when I pointed out her mom commented about this being the heart of the matter? That's an example I wanted to show you about what it means to have literal and non-literal language. Good writers do this, so you might be able to do this in your story, in your personal narrative. Thinking about Professor Fossey and Nell, how do you think they're alike? Her mom's quiet when she's thinking, right? We know Nell does that. They're both scientists, for sure. They're both determined. Let's take a look at this, what I mean about literal and non-literal language. You've probably heard someone say, "It's a piece of cake," right? Well, what does that really mean? It really literally means a slice that's cut from a cake, right? A piece of cake. But if I tell you something was a piece of cake, hopefully you don't picture that. You think to yourself, I mean, that was easy, right? If something was a piece of cake. We saw that word heart in the story. Well, what is a heart? Literally, it's the organ inside your body, right? That pumps blood. But in this story, her mom is trying to tell her it's like the center of something. It's central. That's the heart of the matter. That's the point, right? She's got to get to the heart of the matter. I want you to be paying attention in the stories that you read. If you can find examples of literal and non-literal phrases or words, Today, you're going to watch a video on idioms that's going to explain this a little bit more. And you're going to get to draw a picture and do some writing today. Okay, we learned that Doyle and Fossey, mostly Fossey this time, was able to solve that mystery. So let's see what the next chapter holds.